A high school student works as a secret delivery man, but he does not deliver food or packages. He delivers fights. For 2 years, he believed money was the only thing that mattered, but everything changes when a mysterious girl throws 100 million won at his feet and asks him to become her personal bodyguard. A group of gangsters tortures a man who has been tied upside down in an abandoned building. Their boss rants about incompetence and insists that everyone should do their job properly. Just as he prepares to beat the hostage, a delivery rider suddenly appears and calmly announces that the delivery has arrived. The gang leader is confused. His men were guarding the entrance. Yet this stranger has entered without anyone noticing. The rider says nothing. He places a delivery box on the floor, opens it, and quietly counts the number of enemies in the room. He then checks his phone and adds extra charges to the bill because the job involves a nighttime fight. The gang leader demands to know what he is doing, but the rider calmly explains that combat incurs an additional fee. The gangsters rush toward him, expecting an easy victory. Instead, the delivery rider uses the food box to knock out the first attacker. He catches a knife-wielding thug from behind, crushes his ribs with an elbow strike, and finishes him with a devastating uppercut. The remaining gangsters hesitate, but the rider gestures for all of them to attack at once. The gang leader is stunned by the young man's overwhelming strength. Desperate, he offers to double or even triple the payment if the rider agrees to stop. The offer is ignored. One punch sends the boss crashing to the ground. With the mission complete, the rider takes a selfie beside the unconscious gang leader and sends it as proof that the job has been successfully completed. The hostage finally spits out the cloth in his mouth and demands to be untied, assuming that the rider was sent to rescue him. The delivery rider turns to leave and explains that rescuing him was not included in the order. When the hostage begs for help, the rider places a business card in his mouth and tells him to submit a formal request if he wants additional services. Before leaving, he lifts his helmet slightly and reveals his name, Lee Sang. He accepts any fighting job, as long as the money is worth it. For the past 2 years, Lee Sang has secretly worked as a combat delivery service while attending high school. His job is simple. An order arrives on his phone. He defeats whoever stands in his way, and he gets paid. Despite earning more money than most students his age, Lee Sang has only one goal. He wants to buy an apartment in Tower Palace, one of the most luxurious residential complexes in Seoul. But real estate prices continue to rise. And even with tens of millions of won in his account, his dream still feels impossibly far away. Lee Sang stares at the ceiling and wishes that money would fall from the sky. As if in answer to that wish, he notices a disturbance in the school hallway. A group of bullies surrounds a girl who has fallen to the floor. Their leader kicks her and mocks her for her father's death and the debts he left behind. With a cruel smile, he tells her to become his girlfriend and offers her money as if she has no other choice. The girl refuses to submit. She glares at him with open hatred. Lee Sang steps forward and calmly tells the bully to apologize. The bully is furious, but his friend immediately panics. He recognizes Lee Sang and explains that even upperclassmen avoid provoking him. The bully didn't care and pulled out a knife. Then one of his friends knocked him out, and both of them quickly apologized and retreated with their leader. Lee Sang turns to the girl and drops his business card onto her head. He tells her to call if she ever needs someone beaten up. Since she appears to be in a difficult situation, he even offers her a 2% discount. The girl remains in the hallway, staring at the card in her hand. Later that evening, Lee Sang waits beside his motorcycle, frustrated by the lack of new jobs. He reflects on how difficult it is to earn enough money to achieve his dream of owning a home in Tower Palace. Then his phone rings. A new order appears on the screen. The payment is 10 million won. Lee Sang is shocked when he checks the delivery address. The job is located in Tower Palace itself. After putting on his delivery uniform and helmet, he enters the luxury building and makes his way to Penthouse 8001. The apartment door opens into complete darkness. Using his phone as a flashlight, Lee Sang cautiously walks through the enormous penthouse. After stepping deeper into the penthouse, Lee Sang looks around at the furniture covered with red tags and the armed men emerging from the darkness. Frowning, he mutters that this does not look like a place where anyone actually leaves. He complains that the client should have listed the number of people in advance. Now he has to recalculate the cost and add another extra charge. One of the masked men immediately senses that Lee Sang is no ordinary intruder. He warns the others to be careful and orders them not to give him any opening. Even if he is not their original target, they must take him down all at once. The men rush him from every direction. Still holding his phone in one hand, Lee Sang defeats the another attacker with ease. He barely pays attention to the fight, focusing instead on counting how many opponents he has taken down. Another man swings an axe from behind, but Lee Sang avoids the attack effortlessly and drops him in an instant. Without slowing down, he grabs a nearby chair and smashes it over another attacker's head. The chair shatters on impact, and blood begins to run down the man's face. Glancing at his phone, Lee Sang calmly says, "That makes 5." To him, this is nothing more than another delivery. Then a much larger man grabs him from behind and tightens his grip. Confident in his size, the attacker boasts that Lee Sang may be quick and skilled, but strength is what truly matters. He is certain that someone with Lee Sang's small frame cannot overpower him. Before he can finish speaking, Lee Sang grips both of the man's wrists with such crushing force that the attacker is stunned. Lee Sang sighs and says that two men hugging from behind is both gross and creepy. With one sudden movement, he snaps both of the man's wrists. The giant screams in agony and collapses. Lee Sang then turns toward the last man standing and asks why he is not attacking. If he is too scared to come forward, Lee Sang offers to go to him instead. Enraged, the final attacker charges with a knife. Lee Sang counters instantly and hurls the man with such force that he crashes through the door. Lee Sang assumes the job is finally over, but as he throws one final punch toward a figure emerging from the shadows, his fist is stopped in midair. Standing in front of him is the same girl he helped earlier at school. Staring at her in disbelief, he asks what she is doing there. The girl raises her phone and calmly reveals the truth. She is the one who called him. She studies the unconscious men scattered across the penthouse floor and confirms that Lee Sang is exactly as capable as she hoped. Then she makes an offer that leaves him speechless. She wants him to work with her from now on and protect her from the dangers surrounding her. Lee Sang immediately refuses. He does not provide long-term personal protection, and besides, he believes she has no money. Without saying a word, the girl throws several bundles of cash onto the floor. Lee Sang stares in disbelief. There is 100 million lying at his feet. The girl explains that she will pay that amount for every job he accepts. She looks directly into his eyes and tells him that they need each other. 2 hours after rejecting the girl's offer, Lee Sang stood in front of an ATM and deposited the 50,000 won. As the machine updated his account balance, tears welled up in his eyes. Just a few hours earlier, the girl had offered him 100 million won for every job he completed as her personal bodyguard, but Lee Sang had been convinced that the money was fake. He kicked the bundles of cash aside, mocked her, and examined one of the bills before declaring that the smell, texture, and color were all wrong. He reminded her that the bullies at school had said her family was bankrupt and asked who she thought she was trying to scam. The girl calmly warned him that he would regret turning her down. Lee Sang responded by giving her a rude gesture. He told her he would waive the consultation fee as a special favor and said that if they met again at school, she should pretend not to know him. Now, Lee Sang clawed at his hair in frustration. He could not stop thinking about the 100 million. Opportunities like that did not come twice. Then his cryptocurrency investments suddenly skyrocketed. Lee Sang burst into laughter. At this rate, he thought he would not need the girl's money at all. If the market kept rising, even 10 billion won seemed possible. A second later, everything collapsed. It was a rug pull. His portfolio lost 99% of its value instantly, driven mad by the loss. Lee Sang smashed the ATM booth with a single punch. Before he could recover, police officers arrived and arrested him for vandalism. Because he was still a minor, the bank agreed not to press charges if he paid the repair costs within 1 week. The amount was nearly 10 million won. Lee Sang stood frozen, wondering how his life had fallen apart overnight. The next morning, he arrived at school looking exhausted and immediately approached the girl to take back everything he had said. She was surrounded by the bully and his group of thugs. Smirking confidently, the bully announced that this time he had brought real fighters and that Lee Sang's reputation meant nothing to them. He never finished his sentence. Lee Sang grabbed Bully by the face and slammed him into the ground. One thug rushed in from behind, but Lee Sang knocked him out without even turning around. Two more charged at once, and he dropped both of them effortlessly. Throughout the entire fight, Lee Sang continued talking to Seonha as if the attackers were not even there. He offered to accept half of the original fee and suggested handling the payments through the app after taxes. Then he awkwardly asked whether she could provide a 10 million won advance because he needed money immediately. Finally, he stretched out his hand and asked for the contract. The girl turned away in silence. Panicked, Lee Sang followed her and insisted that he would do the job. She had said she needed his strength, and he was ready to work for her. The girl stopped and told him that he had spent the entire conversation talking down to her. If he wanted to work for her, he needed to ask properly. Their relationship was strictly between client and contractor, and he was expected to show his client the appropriate respect. Realizing he had no choice, Lee Sang controlled his anger. She then says, standing over the bully, Dodong High School, second-year student Hyo Minsap, the punishment is nowhere near enough. Far away on a luxurious golf course, Hyo Younggang, Minsop's father, received a call from his son. At first he answered warmly, asking if his precious son needed more pocket money. Instead, Minsop cried in humiliation and rage. He blamed Seonha for having him beaten and shaving his head while he was unconscious. Photos of his bald head had spread throughout the school and across social media, leaving him too ashamed to return. Younggang calmly promised to take care of everything. The scene then revealed several men buried up to their necks in the ground with golf tees stuck into their heads. They were the same gangsters Lee Sang had defeated during his first delivery. As Younggang prepared to punish the men for failing to deal with the girl, he was reminded that she was not only the daughter of the man he had been searching for, but also that she had now humiliated his son. A golf ball suddenly struck one of the buried men in the face. The man approaching was Bae Minjun. Younggang presented him with a suitcase full of cash and promised an additional bonus if he eliminated Seonha without leaving any trace. Minjun snapped the suitcase shut and explained that he did not take direct orders. If Younggang wanted his services, he needed to place a proper request through Delivery Heaven. When one of Younggang's men grabbed him by the shoulder, Minjun instantly threw him to the ground and warned everyone not to touch him. Recognizing his skill, Younggang formally placed the order and informed him that Seonha had already hired a full-time rider for protection. Minjun studied the target's profile and asked whether he was free to handle the situation however he wanted. Younggang replied that he did not care what methods were used as long as the job was completed cleanly and no evidence remained. Minjun accepted the order and smiled. Lee Sang received 50 million won. Then Seonha dictated to him the conditions that while working for her, he was forbidden from accepting any other delivery jobs, and no matter what happened, he had to remain by her side at all times. He accepted the terms without hesitation. She then officially sent the job. Relieved, Lee Sang thought that at least his immediate financial problems were solved. He saw her going away and asked her, "Where are you going?" "The school is that way." She simply said that she was heading to work. Confused, Lee Sang asked if she expected him to skip class. Attendance still mattered to him, but Seonha paid no attention to the fact, and both left on his scooter. At another school, 3 terrified girls stood inside an empty classroom surrounded by a group of delinquents. Their leader, Song Jeongsu, told them that they had walked in on their own, so there was no point acting like pigs being led to slaughter. He gave them one final warning and told them to obey what he said. Before anyone could touch the girls, Lee Sang stepped inside wearing his delivery uniform and asked if Song Jeongsu from Tanjeo High School, 3rd year, Class 7, was present. Song Jeongsu wondered if someone had ordered food that morning. Then he realized the delivery request had been placed under his own name. Before he could react, Lee Sang's fist slammed into his face and sent him flying across the classroom. One student tried to run, while 2 others immediately surrendered. Seonha entered moments later and asked whether Lee Sang had followed her instructions exactly. With a proud smile, he replied, swiftly and accurately. Delivery completed. Seonha picked up Song Jeongsu's phone and attempted to unlock it, but the facial recognition failed because Lee Sang had hit him too hard. Irritated, she told him to avoid damaging their faces if possible and asked whether he was an amateur. She then handed him tissues and ordered him to wipe the blood from the victim's face. Turning to the 2 trembling boys, she ordered them to identify which schools the 3 girls came from. After that, they were to kneel in the corner with their arms raised. If they lowered them without permission, they were dead. The boys obeyed instantly. Lee Sang watched with interest, impressed by how naturally Seonha took control. Without wasting another second, she turned to him and ordered him to move. They still had a lot of ground to cover. What followed was a full-day raid across several schools. After every fight, he took a selfie and marked the target as delivery completed. By the end of the day, Seonha had collected a bag filled with phones taken from the defeated bullies. As they prepared to leave, Seonha warned that only one destination remained, and it would be the toughest stop of the day. Lee Sang finally asked if they were a team. Seonha immediately corrected him. They were not teammates or partners. Their relationship was strictly business client and delivery rider, bound only by money. Either of them could walk away from the contract at any time, so she had no obligation to share more than necessary. Still, she explained part of her plan. The phones they had collected contained contact information for the person she had been searching for. Once she found that person, her ultimate goal was to deliver Lee Sang directly to them. Before he could ask what she meant, a truck suddenly roared toward them from behind. In the last second, Lee Sang grabbed Seonha and shielded her as the vehicle smashed into his scooter. As they hit the ground, Lee Sang anxiously asked if she was hurt, but the moment he saw the wreckage of his motorcycle, his expression changed completely. Inside the truck sat the first thug they had defeated earlier. Furious, he shouted at the driver for failing to stop Lee Sang and Seonha, despite boasting that he was a rider who could handle any job. The driver calmly apologized, saying it had been a long time since he had accepted an order through the app and that he was a little rusty. Seonha's face darkened when she saw the logo on the truck, Go-Do Courier. Of all the companies they could have encountered, this was the one she most wanted to avoid. She warned Lee Sang to be extremely careful because Go-Do Courier was no ordinary delivery company. Lee Sang, however, marched straight toward the driver and demanded compensation for his destroyed motorcycle. The older rider ignored the threat and searched through the boxes in the back of his truck until he found a long package. Inside was a massive double-bladed pole weapon. Swinging it once, he unleashed a devastating strike that sliced through part of the truck and cut Lee Sang's side, even though he managed to block. The veteran rider explained that Lee Sang had survived only because the attack barely missed. He warned that young riders who relied on flashy moves rarely lasted long in this business. Blood dripped from Lee Sang's side. Then he calmly said that it had been a long time since he had fought someone using a long weapon and that he had misjudged the range. He asked the man to swing again. The older rider attacked once more. This time, Lee Sang met the weapon head-on and shattered it with a single punch. The veteran rider stood in stunned silence. Lee Sang said, "I've got the feel for its range now." The veteran rider stared at him in disbelief. Looking at Lee Sang reminded him of his younger self, a reckless fighter who charged into danger with nothing but raw confidence and his bare fists. Back then, he had thrown himself into battle without caring whether he lived or died. Turning to the thug in the truck, the old man called him over and told him to help. The frightened boy protested that he was the client and the one paying for the job, so he should not have to follow orders. The old man swung his weapon close enough to terrify him. He then asked whether the boy had ever worked a part-time job. The thug admitted that he had not. Despite his appearance, he had grown up in a sheltered environment. The old man shook his head and muttered that parents these days spoiled their children too much. He began lecturing him about loading and unloading cargo before the fight could continue. Seonha shouted to Lee Sang and reminded him that he was still on the job. She warned him not to let his pride interfere with his work. In her view, the gap in experience was too large for him to handle this opponent using only his fists, and she ordered him to step back. Lee Sang immediately rejected the advice. Fighting was his territory, and he had no intention of being coached. At that moment, the old man attacked with a new weapon. A jagged metal ball flew toward Lee Sang, but he shattered it with his bare hand. The old man grinned and praised his determination, ordering the thug to throw faster and leave no gaps. Boxes filled with deadly weapons soared through the air. Lee Sang smashed a bladed weapon with one punch. He broke a wooden log covered in nails just as easily. He dodged arrowheads, destroyed flying ninja stars, and finally stopped a massive hammer with a single fist, snapping the handle in half. The thug collapsed in exhaustion, saying he had thrown everything they had. Lee Sang brushed off the dust and calmly announced that he would consider the destruction compensation for his helmet. Now it was time to settle the matter of his motorcycle. The old man fell silent. In this business, riders who showed off were the first to die. Those words dragged him back 30 years, to when he was 22 years old. At the time, he had been just as arrogant as Lee Sang, insisting that he alone was enough to handle any mission. His teammates constantly warned him that one day his recklessness would get him killed. Then he encountered a legendary rider hired by a major corporation. He was kneeling amid the bodies of his fallen teammates. The mysterious rider calmly repeated the same words the old man had heard from his seniors for years. Showing off was something only people without real skill did. The old man agreed. The rider then revealed that all the seniors who had lectured him were dead, and that he had killed some of them himself. He spared the old man's life because it had been so long since he had met someone he could actually talk to. Before leaving, he proposed that they spend the rest of their lives proving that they were right. That encounter changed everything. The old man abandoned his bare knuckle fighting style, withdrew from the front lines, and spent the next 30 years living cautiously, haunted by the fear that he might one day meet that monster again. And now, standing before Lee Sang, he felt the same terrifying presence. If he backed down once more, his entire life of running and hiding would amount to nothing. The old man tightened his fist and charged. Back in my day, I threw punches just as hard as you do. Lee Sang smiled. That's the first thing you've said all day that I actually like, old man. In the next instant, Lee Sang's punch smashed into the veteran rider's face. Teeth shattered, and the old man was sent flying across the ground. As he lay defeated, Lee Sang casually remarked that the man no longer needed to pay for the motorcycle. Soon, he expected to earn hundreds of billions of won anyway, so he was willing to let it go out of the kindness of his heart. Suddenly, the thug screamed. He had grabbed Song Sionha and pressed a knife to her throat. He ordered them not to move and demanded to know where his phone was, threatening to cut her neck if she did not answer. In one swift motion, she seized his arm and flipped him over her shoulder. As the thug crashed to the ground, she looked down at him. She said coldly, "I can beat you easily."